I'm Rod Duff from Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, folks, I am out. I am starting to warm up to that opening video because like I was telling Daryl, I should have Dittmer, right? Okay. Very unprofessional of me, but I apologize. At least I got it right? So we were talking in the back there, and we were talking about, how the show kind of rolls along and the topics we cover and go through when I say topics we cover, the conversations we have with people who are expert in each area. Each area. I like to break it down as deep as we can. We kind of started this for multiple reasons. The most the thing that brings it all together is standard media, they talk, they scratch the surface of a topic and always geared in their belief system or whoever they're leaning towards politically. But we, talking heads and talking points don't give anybody any real information. So Daryl's here today. Great, very interesting guy, very engaging. And by the way, I love your voice. You got a great radio voice. I recognize that because I don't. But it was a great conversation. He's going to talk about life, as he put it at the end. I just want to talk about life. There's addiction involved in that, and there's some mental health that's involved in that, and for most people, there's variations of everything we're talking about. If not all people have those variations. We're talking about life, addiction, and recovery, entrepreneurship. Being an author is the latest shingle he's hung up, which is very impressive because I'm a writer. I like that. You all know. Long story. Actually, my book started this podcast. But anyway, I'm not going to take any more of your time. What I'm going to do is allow you guys to have a little bit more fun and interesting conversation and actual facts with Mr. Daryl Dittmer. Hey, Daryl.
Hey, Rod.
You look familiar.
Thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, there is a familiarity for sure.
Yes, sir. So, you heard, basically I just, that's the scratch of the surface, right? That I was referring to. This is the highlights of what we're gonna aim for to dive into, right? And so why don't we go back? Why don't you hide that damn Lions thing in the back over your shoulder? Would you please?
I will not.
Not I'm like focused on it, Daryl. Come on, man. All right. So anyway, would you please kind of do a better introduction than I always do and just put some more detail, and then we'll poke off of that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Rod. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for having me on. I was born in Detroit, hence the Lions. And,
yeah.
And it seemed to me as though, being born in that place, my dad was a mechanic. He was for General Motors mechanic. And that's how I grew up.
Yeah. He was in the heart of it, man. Being a mechanic is one awesome thing. Being a mechanic in the heart of Michigan for those companies, I bet you he not only learned a lot, but just at another level, right?
Yeah, downtown Detroit, General Motors, it seemed like everybody's dad at that point worked at either GM, Ford, or Chrysler, and that was just sort of the way it appeared to me. But it was a very, my mom took care of the kids, so it was a very, I'll say middle class, but I remember, having powdered milk and, my mom washing sandwich bags, all that kind of thing. So financially, I would say that, we certainly weren't well off, got a lot of no's, which is fine. I think that's a very positive thing. And My dad was a Korean War veteran, and he was a pretty tough dude. He was not a
Yeah.
guy you trifle with, and I don't care who you were. He was not a guy that you trifle with, especially being a kid.
I get it, man. I get it.
Yeah,
I
so
see the image.
we tried not to cross him. We tried not to cross mom because then you got to deal with dad. And my mom was pretty tough in her own right. So, she was interesting because I look back at it now and, my mom had some stuff. She had some stuff she was dealing with. And everybody does, everybody's family does, every human being does, whatever that is, whatever
Yep.
those things are. And so we moved out more to the country when I was about 14 and
Still in Michigan.
yeah, still in Michigan. And I remember we were at church one day. I grew up, with a Lutheran upbringing. That was kind of what here's your box of stuff. Here's what you're allowed to believe. And if you don't do it right, then you're probably going to hell. That was kind of
Lutheran's kind of Catholic light, isn't it? It's kind of leans into the Catholics. I'll call it a style. I hope that's not disrespectful, but okay. Hey guys, thanks for coming on. We're just getting started, and looking forward to some great information here today. But anyway, I've been Southern Baptist and Lutheran, and from Catholic, the repetition, of the ceremony is more and more and more, with Catholics and Lutherans. It's an interesting religion, a take on it, though. Go ahead. Sorry.
It is. Well, the dude that started it, Martin Luther, like he used to whip himself, so that was.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Like
right,
back in the day, that's how his story went. So something was pretty wrong there in terms of the founding, which, whatever. So it is what it is. You get what you get, right? Here's your box of stuff. You're supposed to believe that. Okay, fine. That's what I'll believe when I'm a kid because I don't know any different. Right. And so my dad, after church one day, and I was 14 years old, he put me in front of this farmer and he said, because we moved out to the country, he said, "Can you put him to work?" And I'm like, "Really? Nobody asked my permission." I didn't say that. I was like, "Okay, I'll do whatever you say," because I'm 14 years old and I'll listen. And so the farmer had a job for me, put me to work, $1.50 an hour, started, just working 12, 14-hour days, sometimes longer. Sometimes it was dusk till after dawn. And I'm sorry, dawn till after dusk, whatever we needed to do out there and taking care of the animals and baling hay and straw and just really hard work. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. But I remember specifically my dad was like, or I said to him, because I was wearing, we used to call them tennis shoes. I still call them tennis shoes. I think they call them sneakers now, but I had sneakers and the sneakers had holes in them. And because of the cow and the pig manure and whatever, and it eats away at this stuff. So I'm wrapping up my shoes with duct tape and trying to keep all the wading around in 2 or 3 inches of this stuff all the time when you're in the barnyards and whatever. And I said to my dad one day, I'm like, "Can I get some work boots?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, you can. Go buy some. You're working." And, I'm 14, 15 years old at that time. And I'm like, "All right, that's cool. I'll do that." And, but that was a flavor for the upbringing, which I honestly couldn't be more grateful for today.
Because of what it built inside of you. Maybe not the best way, but at the end of the day, you became tougher and stronger, more resilient through that that storm that you growing up as in the storm. 14 years old, doing 12, 15-hour whatever hours a day work, and then your pop says, "Go buy him out of the money you already earned." It's like, oh God, yeah, that's tough, man. That's tough.
Whatever. It is what it is. I look at it now and I'm like, I wish more people sometimes would grow up at least maybe with a light version of that, or a version of, you got to figure it out, because ultimately that's what we're left with in this life. In my opinion, we have to figure it out. and our parents go away and we grow up and we have to start doing things on our own and this and that. And we have no other way to do it than to figure it out. And, you know, a lot of times the way we're brought up helps us with that, or it can hinder us with that.
Pull it away. Yeah.
So I started, I had like a lot of people, I had my first drink when I was 13 years old. And, you know, I'm starting to, and I loved it. I loved it. Like, oh, when can I do more of this? You know, that was how I felt. When can I do more of this? And so I tried to do more of it, and I got involved fairly quickly. I didn't drink because I liked it. I drank because I wanted to get drunk, and I drank because it helped me feel differently than how I normally felt. I
didn't hear. Sorry. What age were you in this at this moment? This first.
My first drink was 13 years old.
Yeah.
So pretty normal, I think most people.
Yep.
And then there's a road that some people go down that other people don't go down. And I went down a road where, without belaboring it too long, because I don't glorify this stuff. I'm more about the healing part and the recovery part than I am about the stories, because everybody's got a story. But right? I mean, that's
absolutely
so critical to understand. Everybody has a story, and everybody has stuff that they need to overcome. And
let me just jump in real quick, because you said everybody has a story. You have a story. Everybody has a story, but this is a big I missed that. I stopped fighting. Dang it. I had it up there earlier. I cut you off for no reason at all. And, but they were talking about, wow, what a journey, you know, a farmhand, a businessman, an author. And so I love that story.
Thank you. Well, me too. I mean, it wasn't always that fun, but, I progressed fairly quickly through lots of different drugs, and I'm grateful I never stuck a needle in my arm, but most other things in terms of hard stuff, and you know, petty crimes, and just things that I should be, and there were things that I did that I should be gone. I should be gone, either from this planet or behind bars. So that was how it progressed for me. And a lot of people don't progress that way, but people start to fall off of your life because I'm headed in this direction and they're headed in the, oh, I want to do something decent with my life direction. I wasn't interested in that. And so I started dealing drugs, and lying, cheating, and stealing was kind of my thing. But there was always this rub internally. And I think most everyone maybe can't relate to the story of the drinking and drugs and hardcore and dealing, all that sort of stuff. But everybody's got a little rub inside of them where here's what I was taught versus here's what I'm doing. And I had that rub, and I had that thing that was just eating me up inside. And I had this hole in my chest the size of Alabama. It was just it wasn't a good thing. And it's toward the end of my 18th year. I was 18 years old toward the end of that, almost turning 19. There was an intervention done. It was really my parents, and they were like, look, dude, you know, we want you to go talk to this drug counselor. And I was very defiant. And they said, if you want to go. If you don't, basically you're out. Have a great life. And so that was very, very scary. And I don't know what it was in
rock
terms
bottom,
of
right? Was that your rock bottom? Because everybody hit it.
Close. That was close.
Oh, okay. All right. There's more then. Okay, go on.
Almost there. So I decided, because the meeting they had set up was a week or two hence or something, like, if you want to go, meet us here at such place, such time. And I decided to do it. And I'm not certain why I decided to do it, but I knew for certain that I could probably lie to this person just like I lied to everybody else. And they're not going to find anything wrong with me. You know, I'm cool.
Right.
And so I walk into this guy's office and he was like, first thing, you can't lie to me. You can't lie to me. And don't even try. Don't try to BS me. I don't want to hear it because I'm going to call you on it. And we're not going to have anything happen here if you try to lie to me. So in that meeting, I was, and I don't remember anything that was said. I vaguely remember what the guy looks like, but I was pretty wrecked at that point. So,
but in the
told him-
meeting you were wrecked.
well, just overall,
Or just
my brain, my heart, my everything
gotcha,
was
okay,
a mess.
gotcha. Yeah.
And so, you know, I told him the truth to the best of my ability at that time, whatever that happened to be. But he intimidated me because I was a kid and I was, you know, I was pretty hard, but I was also, there was a soft part of me too. And there was a very vulnerable part of me. Even though I wanted to be this tough guy, ultimately I was just a scared little kid who thought he was a tough guy. So we get to the end. I do remember saying, what do you think, Doc? And he's like, well, we need to put your butt into treatment, man. And he wanted to put me in a 60-day program, but it was filled and it was too far hence to be able to get a spot. So I ended up in this 30-day program. And that was January 3rd of 1985. But there was a New Year's Eve party right before that, December 31st of 1984. And I went to this New Year's Eve party. I don't remember how many people, 100, 200, whatever. There were a lot of people there. And I'm at this party and I am wrecked at that point. But I was never so lonely and I was never so scared and isolated. And I thought about at that point, maybe I don't want to be on this planet anymore. And that was
18.
the point. Yeah. Just actually December 15th, I turned 19. So right after we had that meeting, close enough. I was still basically 18. That was
your brain hasn't even matured yet. I mean, for guys, it's what, like 25. You were still, you know, very, very young at 19. You know, anyway, I just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, no, I was. And so I went into treatment and, you know, that was the start of a new life for me. I didn't know it. You know, I walk in there and I'm messed up and you know, there's just honesty with yourself and let's talk in groups and let's talk to counselors. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, I didn't know
what the heck is this?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to deal with it. There was nothing about that I knew how to frame for my life because, you know, my upbringing was kind of stuff it all down and put all those feelings away and you want to be tough like dad so you don't cry and you want to be all these, you know, these
it all away, compartmentalize.
Yeah.
Right?
And just hold yourself down emotionally. And they're trying to drag all this stuff out of me. I'm like, wow. So that was the beginning of a new life for me, although I didn't know it at that time. But the two things I got out of treatment, and then I'll turn it to you for a second, Rod. But two things I got out of treatment. One was hope that I could have a better life because I just wanted to feel good. I didn't know how to do that, but I wanted to be able to have conversations. I wanted to be able to look people in the eye. I wanted to be able to not have to hide. I didn't want to lie anymore. I didn't want to cheat. I didn't want to steal. I wanted to feel good. And so hope was the first thing I got, which was, you know, hope that I could. And I met people counselors who had been like me, this and that. And they're like, yeah, man, life's great. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, like, how does that happen? And, anyway, so, and the other thing I got for me was I got involved in the 12 steps. I got involved in
actual AA, 12 steps.
Yeah. In
those
healing,
are amazing. Those
They
are
are,
amazing.
because they're a roadmap for life, and
Yeah.
people misunderstand. There's only one step that deals with your addiction or your drug or your alcohol or whatever it is. There's one step that deals with that. The other 11 deal with getting your head out of your butt and dealing with life,
Mm,
right? It all goes into
yeah.
here.
Self-examination.
Yes, the unexamined life is not worth living, right? That's
Yeah.
yeah.
You know,
So
those 12 steps to me are everybody, well, at least 11 of them. Everybody should go through those, because the growth that you have, put the addiction aside for a second, although you're always going to be an addict, or an alcoholic or addict, or where you're just in recovery, right? But that part, it was great talking. It was great going through things and experiences and listen to other people, because that's very, very beneficial. It gives you the hope. But those 12 steps, everybody should do, man. I mean, I grew more in my entire life during that time because of that than anything else. And that blew my mind. I know they're very well known, but man, that was gut.
I think they're highly misunderstood, and I agree with you. That was the beginning of my, I was searching, right? I'm searching to feel better. They're like, here, do
Yeah.
this stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, so I got to do these steps. I wasn't very good in school. I actually was really bad in school. There was no plan for me to move any further in my life from a schooling perspective. Nobody in my family had ever graduated from college or anything like that. And so it was just like, okay, here I am. And what's this roadmap thing you guys are telling me to do these steps? And a lot of it has to do with taking the garbage out of my life and making right with the things that I did wrong, and making amends to the people that I harmed, and admitting my character defects, and accepting that I have those character defects, and how am I going to move forward? And a lot of moving forward is for me at this point in my life is helping other people move forward. I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, and I've had some success in life and that sort of thing. I just want to help other people, and I wrote my books and do my podcast because I want to help other people. I want to give back and give forward from the things that were given me.
Interesting. First thing I think of is back to the 12 steps. What's the last step that you took that program and ran with it at a very young age, considering, I mean, most people don't hit bottom, whatever that means, right? They don't hit, you go decades more, including me, and didn't realize all of the things you were feeling. And you say you weren't good in school, but that's an old soul. That's somebody who has some self-awareness and some actual intelligence to kind of evaluate, what's going on. Like you said, you're comparing what's good and what's bad, and 18, 19 years old to pick up that and run with it and literally design your life around it. Right. I mean, that's kind of, a couple things I just want to add. How did you stay motivated during the tough times? There's a lot of questions here, and you really set that up really well. So let me poke on a couple of these for a minute, and then we'll just kind of go back to the story, and get into some of your entrepreneurship, get into some of your book writing. I have a soft spot for that. I think I told you, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's start off with, how do you stay motivated? I mean, it's grueling. We talk about the mind. In the beginning, you have to create habits so that they become like toothbrush. You don't even think about brushing your teeth anymore. But in the beginning, you're pressing against something that the body doesn't want to do, and it takes time. What is the baseball player's sports analogy? 10,000 times taking a swing to really get it down. 10,000, right?
Yeah. Like Henry Ford, right? He's like, I didn't fail. I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's what it's all about. And I think
it is.
to stay motivated, we have to first, and this is my experience, and I guess my opinion comes from my experience, but we have to have a little bit of success. We have to start to feel a little better. We have to do enough of the work to have life change to a degree that keeps us motivated and moving forward. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to fail. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to have hard times. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to go right sometimes, or at least what I think is right, because I've been around long enough to know what I think is right. It's probably like whatever, whatever power there is out there. They're like, there's an old saying that says, we make plans and God laughs, and I think that
I've never heard that. That's good. I like that.
I think that's absolutely
that's clever.
True. Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. So the other thing is I had a sponsor, or, for anybody who's not familiar with sponsors, you just call them a mentor. I had a mentor, and his name was Bud, and I'll talk a little bit more about Bud as we go along. But Bud said, because I said, well, how many meetings, do I need to go to? How much of this stuff do I need to absorb? And when do I need to go? He said, the best time to go to a meeting is when you don't feel like it. The best time to do the things that are healthy for you and good for you is when you don't feel like doing them. And so there's a self-motivation aspect of that where it clicked for me. And I'm like, I don't feel like doing that. I don't feel like going to the gym. I don't feel like eating right. I don't feel like going to a meeting. I don't feel like doing anything that's healthy for me. And then I'm Bud's back here, and he's like, dude, that's when you need to do it. Go when you don't feel like it. And then you build up the strength, and you build up the mental strength and the emotional strength and the capacity to do those things that help you. And that builds on itself. That momentum continues to go.
Man, that is that Bud sounds like he's the man. I mean, that tracking your thought processes or desires or direction or focus, trapping that in that statement kind of connects it differently. I don't want to do that, and usually don't. I don't want to do that. All right, Bud. You kind of lean on that. That's kind of a a thing that you can use as a tool to the other question, to stay motivated, right? That kind of was your anchor, right?
It was. And it's for the rest of my life. I mean, I've been doing this stuff a long time now, and there's time I don't feel like working out, or I'm like, I'm just going to be facetious. I'm going to eat a cake at 10 o'clock at night. Well, no, you're not, you're right. Because Bud's still back here, and Bud's been gone for a few years now, but Bud's still back here saying, dude, just because you don't feel like
he's not going to let you alone. He's not going to leave you alone. No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the right thing I've found is if I'm doing the right thing for me, there's a thing in the 12 steps to thine own self be true, right? So, and people toss that around, and people are like, well, isn't that selfish? Isn't that like, like just thinking about yourself? But the rest of that, it's from Hamlet, and it's from Shakespeare, and it goes like this. It says, this above all, to thine own self be true. And then it must follow as the night, the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. Basically, it means if I'm being true to myself, I'm also being true to you. And I hang my hat on that every day as well, because the product that I put out in the world, which is me, is if I put the best product out in the world, I'm improving the world. I'm helping other people. I'm in a position where I can give back. And that's what I try to do today.
Yeah, that's awesome. And by the way, back in the day, the language being spoken was so awesome. I mean, we're slang. I mean, basically all we do is speak slang compared to that.
Eloquent.
Eloquent. Yeah. Great word. Great
Yeah.
word. Here's the thing I couldn't find earlier. I don't know why, but from farmhand to author, what a journey, right? What was the hardest part of that transition? And actually, I don't think it was, because you kind of went through that. It you had you know in when you're a kid, you're bowling and they put the bumpers, in the things. You Bud became your bumper. So, but what was the hardest thing in coming out? Because everything's you're talking about is positive, and we all know it's not a simple journey. It takes, like you said, the fortitude to be able to get there. But did anything stand out that somebody that's listening, that's currently dealing here, might benefit from? Hey, watch out for this. Be somebody's bumper in that statement.
I'll go back to Bud, and Bud fed me a lot of great stuff, and this
Yeah.
goes into the title of both of my books, actually, which we'll chat about.
Yeah,
I
people want to know, by the way. So, yeah,
I
your
see.
timing's really good. Yeah.
Cool. No, so it's the fight is with me. So Bud said to me one time, and I grew up, again, my dad was tough, my mom was tough. You're not hurt if there's not a bone sticking out. It was
rub some dirt on it and keep
yeah,
going.
if you're bleeding out or whatever, like, oh, okay, he's actually hurt. But it was always toughen up. It was always no pain, no gain. That was just it, and so that's how I grew up. And so I brought that sort of battling, wrestling way into my life, and that's how I treated my life. And I would battle with problems, and I would deal with problems by trying to fight through them. And Bud said to me, he said, Daryl, as he was watching me and listening to me whine about, and fight stuff and just fight everything. And he's like, Daryl, when you stop fighting, the fighting stops. I'm like, oh, okay. I understood that about 0.5% at that time in my life. And I've been ruminating on it ever since. But that's really it. It's when I stop fighting, the fighting stops. And the biggest challenge always from this moment in my life, from when I was 18 years old, from when I was 19 years old, is me fighting me. That's the biggest challenge. It's Daryl fighting Daryl, and Daryl not wanting to get up again, and Daryl not wanting to do the work, and Daryl not wanting to continue on the road of honesty and humility and faith and those kinds of things, because sometimes it's easier to be mediocre, and that's what it was for me. It was easier to be mediocre, but there comes a time, Bud said this to me as well. He said, Daryl, once you start, and once you really start to go on this life, you can't go back. Now you can, physically you can go back, but there's going to be so much pain associated with it that you're not going to be able to stand it once you start. I hope that helped answer both of those questions.
That's very encouraging. I mean, that's probably one of the best things. Your Bud was the dude. I mean, he said there's stuff there and I'm sure there's lots more to unpack, because your life is lived this way now. And that story about when you made that comment, or Bud made that comment to you, that kind of put you back in mindset, was when you stopped fighting, the fighting stops. I don't know if I said that exactly right, but I didn't realize I was off stage, and I was sitting there going, oh my God, that's so powerful. And so I had to come back on just to go with it. I'm trying to keep up here. We've got like 30 more. I mean, we got a lot of questions anyway. Sure. So we wanted to get into this book, and I kept this up here a little bit. And so, when I stopped fighting, right? So That's a powerful statement, and I haven't read your book. I'm sorry, that one. But that's got to be a powerful book.
It's one of my favorite things about it is because I see there's a lot of self-help stuff out there these days.
There
There's
is a lot everywhere.
There's a lot of people saying, "Oh, you got to do this, or you got to do that, or you got to do that," and I don't believe in that approach in terms of potentially helping people. What I believe in is telling my story, and that people can relate to my story, and people can say, "Oh, I understand where you're coming from," and I think that's the most powerful thing for me because we do all have a story, and sometimes they're not as colorful as the other person's story, but that's okay, because I think it's what we have to share. I think it's what we have to give back to the world. And maybe it's give back to a family member, give back to a friend, give back to somebody that we know. We share our experiences. And my story is about overcoming addiction, overcoming dysfunction, overcoming pain, and taking risks, and losing, and losing a lot, and sometimes winning, right? And again, it's not a you should book or a you have to do this book. It's about my story and getting up after being knocked down. It's about the stories of getting knocked down, the stories of getting back up, and the lessons that I learned.
Yeah, so this isn't, like you said, not a self-help book. It's not a do these, things in your life and you must do this. And this is the self-help is hearing the story, relating to what's going on, and through you being able to see the future, the possibilities, the dreams that are there. And as far as her question here, Citrus, she I think you boy, that's a tough one, isn't it? Is it AA? Is it the intervention? Is it Bud? I mean, there was a combination there, the trifecta there. But what was what was your turning point?
My turning point was when I started to feel a little bit differently, and it's hard to quantify, but when I started to feel a little bit differently, and people came into my life that helped me with that. I think there's a momentum to life when either we're going in a northerly direction or we're going in a southerly direction.
Okay.
And that gets a little bit into my second book, but that's how I look at life. Are we going like this or are we going like that? And so either way we're going to invite people in our lives that contribute to that journey, and
whichever way
we're going, and you see it, and I saw it. It was very clear to me. The more I was going south, the more I had baggage of all kinds of people wanting to help me go south. And when I started to go north, I had people that were willing and able and wanted to help me go north. And I know it's kind of metaphorical, but we understand, in terms of that direction. So the people that came into my life really were the turning point, because I got to see what life could be like.
Well said.
And so that's the big thing for me is the people. And when I made that decision and became willing and started to be able to surrender to a different way of living, I'm just going to call it the universe sent the help. Here's the cavalry, man. We're going to help you out, and we're going to help you move in the right direction. Yeah. Thank you for that question, Citrus. That was a great question.
It was. And there's a couple other ones here as well. And you're kind of already hitting on some of these things, but I think there's people asking for assistance for what you do. And, you talked about the universe, sent in the Calvary, and that's what happens, isn't it? You get back on your journey, what you're here to do. Like, this, I'm biased, but I've been told and I believe that this is actually the mission I should have been on, and it's as much of recovery as possible. So when you're getting those positive feelings, like you said, you attract things that are now helping you go up. And I've seen that my own self as well. What kept you going during the your journey proves that challenge is always there. That's the thing you say about life. Yeah, let's talk about life because it's challenges, right? That's
It
the
is.
easy part.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if the easy part exists.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a momentum, as we talked about. There's a momentum to going whichever direction I've decided to go. So if I've decided to go south, I can get on a toboggan and just keep going down that hill, and it's ice, and here I go. Or I can climb the hill, and I can head north, but when we start to get some contentment and we start to get some fulfillment and we start to understand, and this was an important one, I think this hits to your question. When we start to understand that the difficulties and the pitfalls and potentially the failures are just part of the process. Those are the steps that I need to take and the things that I need to go through to level up. And they're not always pleasant. And many times they're very unpleasant,
and difficult and challenging and
yeah. But I need to, I think Nike came out with something not too long ago that said the only way to is through, or something like that. You got to go through it. You got to go through it.
I thought you were referring to the just do it.
Oh, no, that's too easy. But you got to go through
through it.
If I want to be a marathon runner or a great athlete, I have to do the work, and I have to go through the times when I feel like quitting, and I have to go through the times when I'm just like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. And understanding that, we can also allow ourselves to have some breaks. We can allow ourselves to, you know what, I'm not going to go 5,000 miles per hour to my goal, which I am prone to do. I'm still prone to do that these days. But I'm going to allow myself to have some breaks, and I'm going to take care of myself, and I'm going to eat right, and I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to take time for the things that help me on my journey. And those things are just as important as getting to my journey as it is to, setting an intention, or a lot of people call it goals, to try to know where I'm going. Like we have to nourish ourselves correctly along the way.
Yeah. You made me think, and this question made me think, we've talked about your how your mentorship played and the role of transformation. And it made me think, I don't know how much you know about the show itself, but it's called Insights in Straight Talk, right? With Rod Duff and producer Barbie. She comes on pretty regularly. She's moved out to California, but we've been together for almost 20 years. And she was my your bud, and or is still today. She used to piss me off because she knew exactly what was going on with me, and I didn't want to admit that. I mean, like I'll walk into the room and she'll go, "Okay, what's going on?" I'll call her on the phone. "Okay, what's going on? What? And go do this. And she became my bumper because I've been a mess my whole life. Right? Same story, right? And I don't work out as well as you do, so I don't have even the positive results out of that. But anyway, that's a great part and a great thing to play here. Mentorship is critical, right?
Absolutely. No, I couldn't have I'm going to say I couldn't have done it without mentorship. And I believe that's 100% true. If these people, wonderful people, didn't come into my life, and I've had other mentors, I've had people teach me breathing
Me too.
techniques and meditation and business and all kinds of stuff, and they would make these comments it's amazing. I've known hundreds, if not thousands of people. I've interacted with certainly thousands of people. I've had people tell me all kinds of things that, here's what you should think about and here's what you should do and this and that. And there's probably 10 things in my life that have been really, really, really impactful. And mentorship gave me those things. Mentorship gave me the things that I needed to think about and ruminate on and potentially use to change my life. And I will say one thing about mentorship. Don't wait for a mentor to come into your life. Go find one. And I think that's incredibly important because I needed to get my head out of my rear end, and Bud was there at the right time, and other people were there at the right time to help me. And I think it's really important to find people who we can rely on. And sometimes it's podcasts, sometimes it's books, sometimes, there's a lot of ways to get information, but it was helpful for me to find. Yeah. Well,
I mean, I was waiting for you to say that because that's critical. I mean, you go to a school to learn science from somebody who teaches, about that knowledge. You go to a doctor who knows about cancer or whatever else. You go to a professional to help the things that are needing fixed, because, and how do you get around this? You said something just now that was to the effect of, don't wait for a mentor, go search for them. That's, again, that attraction coming in. When you start looking, people start coming into your life, right? And that's so important. But how that's a lot of people, especially who have issues going on, especially with addictions and alcoholism, you also feel insecure about who, you're not your best self, and that. So going out and searching for a mentor, it's probably easier than you imagine, right?
It can be, and especially in the age today where you can find things online, or you can find somebody, a group in social media. It doesn't have to be. I used to have to do it face to face, and it scared the heck out of me. Like, oh wow,
that's what I was referring to, right? Yeah,
I have to go talk to this guy, like Bud. When I first sort of recognized, I looked in his eyes and I'm like, man, this dude's got something that I want. He's just, he's at peace and he's content and he laughs and he helps, and all of these things that I didn't have, I saw in him.
Glow about him.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, how am I going to go talk to this dude? I'm just this little punk kid who doesn't know, anything. But he was very welcoming, and you'll find, I think, that in wherever you're searching for a mentor, and I do think that online and social media and this and that can be really helpful if you find the right group or whatever it might be, or physically finding some sort of a discussion or a meeting or whatever it is. Most people that you'll find who are worth being your mentor will be happy to be your mentor.
Want to be, yes.
And if they're not, then okay. Something I learned in sales a long time ago was some will, some won't. So what? Who's next? That's the attitude, to move things forward and just say, okay, they said they didn't want to, but let's move on. And it's about the want to. It's about the willingness and the want to, and it's also about taking the risk for me. And it's sometimes even hard for me nowadays to sound like I don't know what the heck's going on, like I need help. And I'm a lot better at it than I used to be, but that's a difficult one for me, or that was a difficult one for me.
No doubt. No doubt. That's a common story. That's a common story, not just in addiction. I think I hope this isn't controversial in any way. It has been in certain times in history, but as a man, you kind of grow up with lessons and testosterone, different, between the sexes. And part of that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's also not, you have to fight as my experience and people I know, you have to fight to be able to, you have to fight yourself. Again, here's the fight. You have to fight yourself to be able to come up with the ability to go out and ask for help, to ask,
Courage.
to seek somebody. It's a sign of weakness in people that aren't educated about it. I've learned this recently, and you're seeing it more and more. Thank God, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell a quick story here because I think this is a really important story. I heard a long time ago that that teachable is another word for humility. If I approach life from a humility perspective, I'm teachable because I don't know it all and I don't know the answers and I don't know where to go and I don't know where to turn. And so if I can approach life from that perspective, I think it's incredibly important and crucial. And so when I was a kid and just getting sober, there was this meeting we used to go to. It was Friday nights. It was this place called the Community Center in a nearby city. And I used to go to this meeting and I would be there with friends that I had gotten during being sober and this and that. And some were serious about it. Some weren't. Some were just clowns, some really wanted it, that sort of thing, which is fine.
Clowns are fun. Clowns are fun.
Clowns are fun. Yeah, no, I can be a clown too, but I was very serious about getting my life together and some
Absolutely.
weren't as serious. So there was this gentleman and his name was Jimmy, and he used to go to these meetings and he was just kind of a small in stature guy, a little hunched over, and he was older and he would walk around these meetings but he had 40 years of sobriety at that time. And here I am 6 months, 9 months, whatever, sober, still fighting the fight and whatever. But Jimmy, we used to look at this guy like he was a deity, like, oh man, this guy, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And so he was the only person in that meeting or any other meeting that I ever went to that would go fill up the coffee carafe and go fill people's coffee in the meeting. And he would just walk around and fill people's coffee in the meeting, that sort of service and that humility and that. But one thing he used to say, and this is what I remember, and this is one of the 10-ish things that I remember in my life that people would say that just hit me. He would say, if you want to move forward in life, if you want to change, if you want to be better, if you want to do better, you have to stay small. You have to stay small, which means
meaning within yourself.
Stay humble.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Stay humble, stay teachable, be willing to learn, want to learn, look for people who are better than me at it and find them and learn from them.
Yeah, learn from people that are smarter than you. And this doesn't totally relate, but I just love this saying so much. And it was an old poet that said it. It's a much longer story, but I watched these clips on Ted Lasso. I don't know if you know the show, but I've never seen the show, but it's awesome for like making you think. It's a great way to be a person. if you were that thinkable all the way through, he's a corny guy, but he's right. All this insight,
wisdom there for sure.
A lot of it. And I'm not going to go through the whole story. Did you see the dart throwing? Have you ever seen the dart throwing scene where the owner, arrogant guy, is harassing his ex-wife, they're now divorced, about this soccer team, football, professional football team. Anyway, he went through this whole story, so it's going to sound better on that clip, and you can find it. I guarantee you see it all over the place. But the bottom line was, be curious, not judgmental. And that's a shift in I think most people's, not philosophy, but thinking range. Be curious, not judgmental. And you got to hear the whole thing, because it's just, I mean, the build up to that was awesome. And it's a great, another one. I've heard a dozen great moments here today. There's one to add too, because that's part of that.
It is part of it. And it's huge, because the only way that I was able to move myself forward in this life, and you nailed it, Rod, is because, you know, it's about exploration and taking risks and curiosity. And I don't live by, you know, quote unquote, the 12 steps like I used to, and I don't go through them and this and that, but it started me on being curious about other things and curious about other traditions and philosophies and religions and all that kind of stuff. And the thing I found was, and people say this, and it's true, they're all the same. You know, they're all about moving our lives forward in a way that makes sense. And the only way we find those things is if we break out of what we think we know, which I had to do. I had to break out of what I thought I knew in that box of stuff that was handed to me when I was young, saying, believe all this. I had to break out of that, and I had to start pulling it apart and looking at it. That's the only way. And that's curiosity. That's exploration.
Yes, it is. And that is such about everything. I mean, you become a better person in that stance. I believe your vibe, you know, who you are is better. And it's like you said, it's amazing to be curious, because your life is much more fulfilled that way. If you're judgmental, you think you know it all, that's a different approach to each morning that you walk out of your domicile and spread out to the world. And what you're talking about is that curiosity. That's what, you know, what is it? The butterfly effect. I forgot exactly how, but butterfly flaps his wings in Africa or something. You know, the energy of the world is real. And kind of getting to what you were saying, some of that draw from people that are there to help you, or the other way, up or down, is some of that energy. And we have to believe that, because we're all, you know, mammals, we're humans, we're susceptible to more things than I think we believe or know of.
Well, there's a huge universe of stuff out there to know, right?
Yeah.
Huge universe of stuff out there to know, but there's an equally huge, if not, I don't want to say huger, but more huge.
Oh, say it. Come on.
Huger. There's a huger universe in here to know,
love that,
and to understand and to explore. And that's been my life for a long, long time. I always say to my wife, I'm like, when I'm getting ready to exit this rock, just shoot me out in a little space capsule, give me couple sandwiches, couple drinks, you know, a little water. And I just want to check it out. I just want to go and check it out and, you know, see what the earth looks like from down there. And that would be the best way for me to go.
You got to go. It's got to be on SpaceX though, because they're a little bit more advanced than NASA right now. So
they'll be more reliable probably. But you know, just that exploration externally, I can spend a lifetime doing the exploration internally and never run out of stuff to do. And that's a beautiful thing about being on this planet and being on this earth and being given what we've been given, that, you know, I just look at it all as a gift, and the exploration is immense and never ending if we choose that.
Yeah. And unfortunately we don't a lot. I mean, the best thing that can, exploring space is awesome. Exploring, you know, different things that you have. What's the old saying? Don't go out and fix something else until you have your own room, your own house made. You know, people, the best thing that anybody for themselves can do is explore inside, you know, go through that journey. And most people don't, and don't really know themselves. I went through life, first part of my life, with a mask. This is something Barbie kind of broke through to me on. I did not feel good about raw duff. And in business, I went by JR. I'm a salesperson too. Got a machinery business, but I hid behind that. I was being what I thought was what I wanted people to see. Oh my God, was that a mistake? After you look back and you go, holy shit, no wonder oh my God, a lot of people have got to be mad at me because I was, that. And now I'm what's the word? Not official. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Authentic. Authentic is the most powerful way to be when interacting with other people. And I never even had a thought about that till several years ago. Thank you, Barbie. She's probably on here somewhere, but yes, that's self evaluation is the best thing. All right. I mean, it's the best thing you could ever do for yourself, even better than working out and eating right. It's the best thing for you, and people don't do it.
It's true. And I look at life as there are, and yoga talks about this, and I just love drawing from different traditions, but yoga basically means yoking body, mind, heart, and soul. Yoking those things together so that because if I'm not taking care of one of those pieces of me and of my being and of myself, then I'm potentially faltering in the others. And if I'm not treating, for me, and this, nothing I say is take what you can use and leave the rest, right? That's how I feel
right.
about what I say is not gospel or anything. It's just my opinion based on my experience. But if I'm not taking care of my body and I'm not eating right, I'm not sleeping right, I'm stressing myself out and, blah, 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 then I'm not going to feel good in my heart. I'm not going to feel good in my soul. I'm not going to feel good in my mind. So all of these things contribute to each other. And for me, it's been a very synergistic approach. And believe me, I'm an extreme dude, as you may have guessed from my earlier story. I can go off the rails, and I don't let myself do that like I used to, but I can go off the rails. I have the capacity for it. I have the capacity to work too much. I have the capacity to eat incorrectly. I have the capacity to do things that aren't good for me. I choose now because I know it throws me off. It throws me off in the world, and it throws me off the product, meaning me, that I want to put out there for other people, for my relationships, for my family, for all of that. I have to attempt to be the best me because I want to be the best me for them.
That's kind of my story too. I mean, I have a 16-year-old granddaughter, my second oldest son, high school sweethearts, got married, went to college, so they started young. I mean, most kids are starting later now, but I just had, for instance, my oldest son just had her first year birthday, but a month ago or whatever. But when you said that, it's not just me. That was a huge motivation for me. Those two, because they, she didn't know anything about it, but Emma, who I talked to, who's turning 16 on Sunday, her sweet 16, wow. She is somebody that's in my life at an age and hormones and stuff that I how maybe you don't, but she's an old soul. She's and I'm in her life, and I wasn't forever while she was growing up, but she's so excited about me being in her life. That becomes a motivator. That becomes something that because you feel it, it's a different feeling. Those others, that your wife, kids, that stuff is a purpose in life that's critically important. I just want to say one thing. This is one of the best live sessions I've ever watched. And you know what? I'm biased, but I agree with him.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's nice to say. Appreciate that.
I think we already went over how to admit. Hey, you have time, right? You're
yeah.
okay.
I'm
I
cool
mean, we
till
go.
about 12:30 my time.
See, you're
15 more.
in East. You're in East, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, cool, because we got a whole shitload of questions. Or at
We can
least
do a mini series or part 2 or whatever you want to do,
I definitely was going to bring that up. Good call, my man. I think we already talked about this a little bit, but how did mentorship shape your success? I mean, we've kind of spent some time on that. And there was another one what did you learn from writing your books? That was, that was up a little higher. I'll look for it while you're talking.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's okay. Good. Yeah, I really like that because I can connect to that. I mean, writing for me is mental. I mean, you give out to other people, you're giving back, but at the same time, when you're doing that, I believe, at least for me, I'm sure everybody, when you're writing that, it's it's that connection with yourself again. You're self-evaluating, but it's medication for me, when I write, and I write a lot, right?
Yeah.
So what was your experience there?
It was, and I'll go back a long time, and I'll just do a quick little story here, but when I ended up going to college, and like I said, nobody in my family had ever graduated from college or anything, but I wanted to pursue life,
deal.
and I thought that was the way to do it at that time. So I went to college, and I was a wreck. I was 8 months sober. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, oh, studying? What is that? I didn't do much of that. I cheated a lot in high school. I didn't do much studying. And then, then I had to actually do it in college. I'm like, oh man. So I'm confused. I'm tackling other things, and I was working. I was milking cows from 3 to 9 in the morning, 2 or 3 days a week. I was burning the candle. So I was a wreck.
Oh, it's been fun. 3 o'clock in the morning.
That 200 head of cattle. So you have to milk cows twice a day. You don't get a break. Christmas don't matter. Cows don't take time off.
You got forearms from that, didn't you?
Well, back at that time, I got forearms from other stuff, but back then, you just hook them up to the milkers.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were when you said 200, I went, okay.
No, by hand. That's a long time.
It is.
But anyway, so I was such a wreck. And the reason I say that is because I learned that I needed to write. And somebody said to me, I don't remember who it was, but I just grab a yellow legal pad and I would just start to write, and I would write, and I would write. And I wasn't writing for any purpose other than to just get things out, to sort of clear the system and be able to see what was going on with me. And that was a really important part for me in terms of being able to stay sober and stay away from drinking and stay away from drugs and not go back. I had to lay things out so that I could see them. I could see what was going on with me, and then I could better organize what I needed to do next, or say, you know what, I can't do that anymore because it's too much, or whatever it happened to be. So fast forward to my books, and I said to my wife a long time ago, I said, because I didn't marry her till I was about 20 years into recovery. And
so close to 40-ish.
Yeah. I was 39 when I married her.
All right. Yeah, nice.
So I was relating stories, when we first met, and I'm like, oh, here's all the stuff I used to do. And she's like, man, that's not you anymore. And she's like, I'm not seeing it. And she sees this little crazy part of me, which is, I hope I never lose that, but not the destructive and all that sort of stuff. And I said, well, that's cool. I said, remind me to write a book someday. And so that was the impetus to get me to write. But then the other impetus was I wanted to help, and I wanted to give back. And I had, I'd had a life that was, I like I said, there was some good things happen in business and this and that, and was able to do some things. And so what was next for me? And next was writing my book, and my first book. And so it was immensely healing, and it was cleansing, and it was illuminating and eye-opening. And the cool part of it was again, I could be sort of an extreme dude. So I'd get up at like 3:00 in the morning. I don't use an alarm clock. I haven't for years, but I'd wake up, my book would be churning, and I'm like, oh man. So I'd put on my robe, and it's winter time, and you have to walk outside to get up to this spot above our garage, which is our office. And I'd put my robe on and, my slippers, and I walk up there, and I'd be freezing in the winter time. And my wife wouldn't see me all day, and I'd just be writing. But it was so
feels so good,
so healing. And I'd remember things that I hadn't remembered before, I hadn't thought about in 30, 40 years. And there was nothing like it. It was beautiful.
And you're connecting synapses in your mind. You're creating roadmaps as you're writing, because that's an additional skill, right? That's it just builds you in every which way but loose, right? And
sure.
So here I actually skipped a couple of them by accident, but so many golden nuggets. I could not agree more. What's pizza? Oh, pizza. It must be a business guy. What's next on your journey?
There was a time in my life, and I'll try to keep this fairly succinct. There was a time in my life where, when things were tough, I used to say, oh man, what's next?
Oh, yeah.
And now, and for a long time now, I'm able to say, wow, I can't wait to see what's next. And that's a really cool place that I've been gifted to be, and I'm grateful for it. But so I honestly, I never really thought or believed maybe that I was going to be an author someday. I never thought that I'd be doing podcasts. People who know me would be like, Daryl, podcast? What are you talking about? Like, no, he would not do that. So in terms of what's next on my journey, when I told my wife, I said, I'm going to write a book. And this was before 1 or 2 came out. And I said, I think I got a book in me. She's like, I think you got 3 books in you. And I
love this woman. That's,
great.
Every great man needs a great woman, right? I mean, we're different.
I overmarried big time. She's awesome. She's awesome. Her name is Christina. I don't want to refer to her as her, but her name is Christina. She's wonderful and such a support mechanism. So my 3rd book is probably what's next in terms of the journey, and continue doing the things that I do now. But I do a lot of writing. We haven't
even talked about your podcast at all. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh,
that's also part of your journey now, and it's obviously reaching out to people and what we've been talking about. What about advice for people that are starting over?
I would say, understand that the universe is completely open to you in terms of what you want to do or want to accomplish. And the only limitation is going to be, what was I willing to do? What risks was I willing to take? All that sort of thing. Because there was a time in my life where I was looking in the couch cushions or under the seat of my car or whatever, trying to find change to put gas in my car to go to my next sales appointment. And that's how dire things got for me financially. And that was a difficult place to be. And so I speak from experience when I say that. I'm not giving clues on what somebody else needs to do. Just open yourself to whatever the universe might be willing to open for you. Because my life now, and I'll say this, and you heard the stories from some of my youth, and there's a lot more stories in my book, but my life now is 1,000 times better than I ever realized it could be. And that's an amazing place to get to. And again, I'm grateful for it. I don't take credit for it. I did the work. I did what was in front of me to be done. And that's how I look at it these days, is just from the perspective of gratitude.
Yeah, that's bad. Just to add to that, have you ever heard the story of the forest is neutral? It's I think a general from Japan kind of wrote this thing. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't think so, but
Yes. So it goes in the same thing. The world, it's not out to get you. It's just the world.
right.
You have to keep, and basically it's that story, but it's pretty cool because the it's tied to war, but it's a very cool story about, don't put things in your mind that aren't there. Don't go boo-hoo. The world is just going through its cycles, right? The forest is neutral. It doesn't care if you're there or not. There's snakes there. But you got to look at life certain ways,
Yeah, it's interesting when you're saying that. I'm thinking, because I've been able to discover that my mind is also neutral. Everything that's coming in and out of my mind
Oh,
is either stuff I've thought before, or things that people have planted, or things that I've believed because I grew up that way. Or the mind is a quiet place if I nourish the quietness, and if I allow it to be
there
quiet,
you
and
go.
if I take the time to understand that's my natural state, is quiet, and just like the world. And I think that's important for people to understand, because I used to have a lot of people living rent free in my head, and my problems were living rent free in my head. But if I
Mhm.
focus on the moment and what's happening now and what's in front of me to be done, and I'll say this because I think it speaks exactly to this thought, is if I have one foot in yesterday and one foot in tomorrow, meaning in my head, guess what I'm doing all over today?
You're
And guess what I'm doing all over this particular moment? Because the only thing that exists in the past is guilt. The only thing that exists in the future is fear. And in terms of negative things, and if I'm in the moment right now, I'm just doing, and I'm focused. I'm the task at hand is what I'm concerned about. And I think it takes practice. All this stuff takes practice, but that's a heck of a way to go about our days.
It is, and the practice, what you're saying is so relevant, because your mind, like you said, it's a quiet place if you nurture it, but it's also the thing that drives everything. It's amazing how powerful the mind is. Um, two quick things. There's two more comments. They usually come in right at the end, sometimes two, but I don't know. Anyway, every minute of the show is worth it. Love it. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Nick. And then kind of back to the book a little bit. And this is a different, this is a little bit different question and there was a question I skipped over about mentorship because we talked about it. So there's a couple other questions that we have. You can go back and look at them. And by the way, before we go here, I like to have people. You're a host. I don't know what software system you use, but at least what I'm using, the guests can't comment in the comment section. They can go to a private chat. So if you would put your contact information in that, at the end, there'll be about 2 minutes that I'm wrapping up and another short video. While that's going on, if you would put that in there, and I'll copy and paste it over into because what happens is, you probably know, this is live, but next week it'll still be here recorded, and people watch them, and then they have questions or comments or whatever, and you're the expert, not me. So anyway, do that for me if you would.
Yeah.
How did writing your book change your perspective?
For me, each one of our movements in life, I look at life as trying. I have to try. I have to consciously
Show up.
move myself forward, and
Yeah.
I have to try to improve, and I have to try different things, and taking risks has been a big part of my life. And and so how did it change my perspective? I would say probably the biggest thing is number one, I found out I could do something like that, because I
Okay.
never thought it was possible to be able to write a book, much less write 2 books. And then per my wife, I have to write another one.
Yeah, you better get on that,
I
brother.
can't wait to do. Yeah, no, I'm excited about it because it's huge fun.
Yeah,
But it's a challenge, and I think we have to understand that we have to take things on. We have to challenge ourselves to understand that we can even challenge ourselves further, and we can go further from what we thought we could do. So everything that I've done in my life has challenged my preconceived notions of what I thought I could do. And then there's that little element in there where I have to take that risk and take that little step that I don't want to take, or that I'm scared to take, or that I'm hesitant to take. And so the perspective changes each time. And each time I can allow myself to level up. And I don't mean level up from a judgmental perspective. I just mean different degrees of doing things that might be different that we hadn't done before. So huge change in perspective, and it allows me to believe that I can do even more. And that's a cool place to be.
absolutely.
And some of the simple things that, that we do, that those little steps that we take, I think help move us in that direction.
That is awesome. This has been, I was excited about it. I told you before, I was excited about this subject, and you never know quite how the message is going to come out. You do this. And so beyond expectations, this was enlightening, engaging. It was fun. I think the audience really were able to pull, like you said, life, just show up, right? That's the most important thing, and the way you present that path and that is very engaging and enlightening. And I didn't need to dig. I just shut up because you obviously you've told this story before and you know all about it. So on a final thought here, this has been awesome, Daryl. I think I got most of them. I think I missed a couple, but send that text in there. You got a final thought, and I'll send you back to the green room after you wave bye-bye to all your fans there.
Thank you. I guess my final thought would be, and it's different every time, because there's so many beautiful things to glean from this life, and from the lessons, and from learning. And Bud told me, we'll go back to Bud for a second.
My Bud.
Bud's the man.
Bud's the man.
We do this again. We'll talk a little bit more about Bud, but
100%.
Bud said to me, and I think this is important for everybody to consider and to ruminate on. Bud said, and it sounds biblical, but it's not. It's just the weirdest thing. So around the rooms, you see this thing, and I'm talking about the 12-step rooms. It would say first things first, and you hear people say that, and it's like, okay, I got it. But Bud said to me, first things first, and the rest will be added on. And I believe that's crucially important to understand as we go through life, because the first things first part, as he explained to me, is taking care of my body, taking care of my mind, taking care of my heart, taking care of my soul to the best of my ability, and all the other stuff comes. And when I say all the other stuff, it can be whatever our wish list might be. Maybe it's great relationships, maybe it's financial security, maybe it's contentment, whatever that is. Like, those things show up when we do the first things first. And those are what he meant when he said, and the rest will be added on. And I think it's important to just have that little seed of faith to do it, and do it for a while, and do it till you start seeing some results. And then you really want to do it. And then you really want to continue to move it forward. And that's what I would say is my final thought on some last bit.
What a, you never want to end on something that a little flatter than the rest, but what a way to do that final thought in a way that's just powerful. So many lessons learned here, so much insight and straight talk. Little self-promotion there. This has been fantastic. Let's stay in contact, obviously. Put your stuff up there if you would also. And let's stay in touch. Like you said, we could do a short series, like a Netflix short series thing. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I'm going to leave this one up there because I just kind of like it.
Thank you, Nick.
What he's saying there. Why don't you wave to everybody, and I'll see you in the green room, and I'm going to close out. There's a little video at the end, and then I'll just say a couple things and on to the next show.
Thanks, Rod. And I'm gonna throw my website on there and whatever I can type before we go. So thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it. Great questions, and thank you, Rod.
You bet. All right, buddy. See ya. So yeah, like I said, I a lot of the subjects, Daryl was saying something that I just now thought of, but a lot of subjects are attracted to this show. We're talking about a lot of subjects, and guest requests. We probably get, I don't know, a couple of requests a day. But my point is, when you're sending that energy out, we talked about this. When you're sending that energy out, whether you're headed up or headed down, things are attracted to you to be. And my point in that is the topics on the show, a great many of what are there. First of all, I learn every single day now, and that's the curious part of me that I just love and nurture. Second of all, like this one, I had my own counseling session today, and that I am so blessed to have day in and day out. We started the show as part-time while I have my other business, and I was 3 weeks ago, I canceled my last contract in that business, although I'm getting some people that are trying to get me to come back. So I'm trying to figure out how I can, this full time, man, it's become a full-time message, and it's my mission. So it's like Daryl said, I can't wait to see what happens next. And I get additional benefit just because I'm so wrecked. Everything these smart people come on and tell me makes sense, and thus adds a little bit more to who I am and what I mean and what I can offer to this world. So we're gonna have a little video here in a second, but in the meantime, I am out.
Hundreds of trillions of dollars coursing through our economic veins, there exists a pathway where no U.S. citizen needs endure poverty. Every child should be shielded from involuntary hunger and thirst. By eradicating greed and corruption, we pave the way forward. This chapter delves into the rationale behind our governmental expenditure and prompts a critical inquiry into how our leaders allocate our resources.